Grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Thank you so much for those of you who are getting logged in with us for this another Walking Through the Word Bible class. Thank you to our intercessors who are in full force and full team tonight. Thank you, Sister Porter. Thank you, Reverend Young. Thank you, Sister Johnson, for carrying us during our time of intercessory prayer. We certainly appreciate your work, your consistency, your diligence, and your efforts in covering us and keeping us covered in prayer. Thank you for those of you who are getting logged on for this Wednesday night, Walking Through the Word. Thank you so much for being Hill Watchers. We appreciate you hanging out with us, what will be 30 minutes of teaching and learning on corporately tonight. So thank you again. Take some time, if you will, and like and share this particular broadcast, and we certainly appreciate if you would do that for us and invite somebody to come and hang out with us for Walking Through the Word. And listen, I want to continue this thrust and this thematic thought, and we're talking about making this impact. Last week we were dealing with that storm and the disciples being on that ship and how the water got into the ship, and the concern of those who were occupying the ship, and the concern of the ship them perishing out in the midst of the particular storm, and how Jesus rebuked the wind that was causing the water to get in the ship, and said to the sea, just kind of be still. And we dealt with how that order is important in our lives. I want you to note something as we journey. We'll look at something that I want to share with you tonight. I want you to look at that particular instance, and I've said this probably maybe some 10 years ago or so, when God had given me a revelation as it relates to the water in the ship. I want you to note this. I want you to note this, that the water represented for me, and this principle of thought, that water represented fellowship. The water represented fellowship, right? The ship was on the water. The water represented fellowship. The ship itself, Sister Rose, represented leadership. The ship itself represented leadership. Revelation God gave me some 10 years ago. And here's what happens when there is order. There has to be leadership, and there has to be what? Talk back to me now. When there is order, there has to be what? And there has to be what? And here's what happens. Anytime fellowship gets into leadership, the ship will sink. Are you with me? The water represents what? What does it represent? Fellowship. The ship represents what? Leadership. And anytime there's order in an organization, there's what? Leadership and what? All right. The water represents what? The ship represents what? In any organization, you have to have what? And what else? And when fellowship gets out of order and gets into leadership, what's going to happen with the ship? Because things are what? That makes sense? I want you to stay married to that particular principle. Some 10 years ago, God gave me that. Is that the water represents what? What does the water represent? The ship represents what? And when the water gets into the ship, because fellowship is designed to do what? Leadership is designed to do what? And so when fellowship decides that they're going to be leadership and the water gets in the ship, what happens to the ship? Right? Because it's what? Nobody's working or functioning in the place of order, and so it will sink. It's interesting. As I was preparing, just for this time, I looked at Luke chapter 22 is where I want to look at tonight for your teaching. But I wanted you to. That was the conclusion of that as it relates to that water representing fellowship, the ship representing leadership, and when fellowship gets into leadership, the ship will certainly sink. It's interesting. I wanted to journey with you to that moment that Jesus Christ has in his concern or in his prayer or communication with God in Luke chapter 22, verse number 42. Luke chapter 22, verse number 42. What are we looking at? Luke what? What verse? All right, 42. Check it out if you will. Luke chapter 22, verse number 42. Let me know when you get there. All right. Luke chapter 22, verse number 42, right? This is Jesus saying, Father, right, if thou be willing, right, remove this cup from me, right? Nevertheless, right, not my will, but thine will, but thine, I'm sorry, not my will, but thine be what? Done. Jesus says to his Father, Father, right, if thy be what? Willing. Remove what? This cup. Remove this cup. What was in that cup? I don't want this cup. I don't want to hold this cup. As a matter of fact, he said, remove the cup. Take the whole, somebody said, take this whole cup, right? Just listen, take it, right? If thou be willing. And there are, conversations and theological thoughts, this cup representing the suffering, the agony that Jesus Christ would face on his journey en route to Calvary, right? And he said to his Father, now look, in other words, I want to do what you're telling me to do, but if you have an alternate route, do me a favor, Dad, give me that route, because this route that I'm getting ready to take, I ain't necessarily trying to go, right? And so if you have a different route, give it to me, right? And so Jesus makes this request to his Father, if thou be willing, remove this cup from me. Where I want to pitch the tent, or where I want to park tonight, is his statement in the latter clause of the text where he says, nevertheless, right? Not my will, but thine will be what? Be done. Because I think for us, people of God, if we're going to make this impact, if we're going to change lives for the cause of Christ, that this has to be our hallmark. It has to be our foundation. It has to be where we pitch our tent, where we have decided that this is the place I want to be, I'm going to be. And I think if you're going to get there, I think it's a process of development. I don't think you get to the place of saying, nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. I don't think you arrive there overnight. I don't think you just get to that place where you have decided, you know what, God, total surrender, not my will, your will be done, and boom, you there. I think that every day there has to be development of this mindset and this attitude. I don't think it's instantaneous. I don't think you can just say, wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? I have been struggling, and I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do. I'm getting ready to tell God, and I'm going to live it. Lord, not my will, but your will be done. Right? That doesn't happen overnight. Right? Would 2 or 3 people agree with that? That doesn't happen overnight. Right? And that there's some things in our lives where our attitude is this. Lord, I know your will. Don't you miss this. Lord, I know your will, but I want it my way. Come on, I want us to be transparent. Let's be honest. That we have moments in our lives, I've been there, where you have communicated with God and you said, Lord, you know, you snot, you're crying, and you said, Lord, okay, I really want to, I want to be pleasing to you, but in the back of your mind, you're telling God, this is really, I want it this way though. I want it this way. I want to make sure, you know, you ain't mad at me, God, but, you know, if you can give me some flexibility. Like, give me, just come on, God. I know, just give me a little flexibility. I want to be in your will, but really, I want to be in your will, but God, but can I be in your will, but have it my way? And I'm not talking about, you know, us, because we're mature Christians. We don't even think like that. You know, you live your life every day saying, oh, God, I'm in your will, grinning, right? Hush. Hush. Right? But all of us get, you know, I shouldn't say all, I'm going to be all-inclusive, but I've been at that place where I prayed to God, and when I prayed to him, I asked him for what I wanted him to do, and then I asked him, okay, can you do it like this? And in my prayer, here's what I realized in my prayer. Here's what I realized in my prayer. It was obvious that what I wanted God to do, I couldn't do. That's why I was communicating with him in the first place. But now that I'm communicating with the person who I believe has the power, the unmitigated gall of me to tell him, okay, now you can do it, but let me show you how I want it done. And I think if we're going to get to that place of making an impact, or consistently making an impact, or consistently staying in the place of order, we have to constantly remind ourselves as we're developing to this place, Lord, it's your will. And even though, and I want you to be honest with God, even though, God, I want it my way, I'm still determined that my mindset is being developed where I know how to surrender to your will, even though I want it my way. And so Jesus Christ himself, he struggled. He says, Lord, if you can remove this cup from me, if you can remove this cup from me, I want to do what you want me to do, but I need you to give me another way. Then he says, nevertheless, right? Not my will, not my way. Not how I want it, but how you want it. That's a process of spiritual development. Where then, Pastor Johnson, where then does that start? How does that place of development take place? It's an appropriate question. Because there's always the challenge of surrendering when you know how you want it. There's always that challenge when you know how you want it and you visualize the thing and it ain't quite coming together like that. It's hard to surrender to anything else because you like, this ain't what I planned. And so in order for the process of development to take place, I want you to note this, is that number one, you have to have a sense of purpose. Are you with me? A sense of what? Purpose. And I'm not talking about your fickle personality purpose, where 1 minute you think you've been summoned to do this and then next week you feel like you've been summoned to do that. That's not purpose. That's indecisive. You haven't made a decision, right? But you have to, in order to develop this nevertheless attitude of God's will, you have to have a sense of purpose. Somebody say that with me, sense of purpose. You have to, because if you don't, there won't be any consistency in your movements. And people who don't have purpose can't find consistency. Well, where do I find the level of consistency? Well, once you develop a sense of purpose, right? Now you can put everything in order based upon what? The sense of what? Sense of purpose. And so as Jesus is talking to his Father, and the reason I believe that he transcends from, okay, move this cup until, wait a minute, don't move it nevertheless. Whatever your will is because he understands that he now has to fulfill purpose. And where there is no purpose, there will always be the place of, I don't know what I should be doing. And I don't want to live my life like that. Every second I'm trying to figure out, well, what do I do next? Because you never get into a continuous flow when you don't have a sense of purpose. You'll keep going back and forward, switching up left and right. You don't know why, because you don't have a sense of purpose. Why is it, Pastor Johnson, that to develop this, I have to have a sense of purpose? What's significant, I want you to hear this, what's significant about a sense of purpose? When you look at Jesus' request to his Father, he asks, I don't want this cup. Why doesn't he want the cup? Because there's pain in the cup, agony in the cup, frustration in the cup, crucifixion in the cup. I got to be beat with the stuff that's in the cup, right? But when you have a sense of purpose, you understand this, that pain shouldn't stop purpose, but it should produce it. Good God Almighty. Don't miss it. That just because you have moments of pain does not mean that you ought to stop doing that which you are purposed to do. Your pain should be an indication that somehow God is birthing out of you that which he's planted on the inside of you. But if you lose sight of purpose, you will focus on the pain. I'm teaching better than you hollering back. And I think here's our struggle, that the minute that there's pain, guess what? We stop. You know why you stop? Because you stop focusing on the purpose. And there's going to be moments in your life where you're going to experience pain, but pain shouldn't stop you, but it should help produce your purpose. And just because there's some pain doesn't mean that purpose has gone on vacation. Doesn't mean that. But when you understand purpose, you can tolerate some pain. And sometimes pain is an indication of you're getting better. Oh gosh. When I had surgery, last year, man, listen, when I had surgery last year, when I got out of surgery and they gave me whatever narcotics they thought I needed, and I was in so much pain, I'm serious, I was crying. I was crying, that's how much I was hurting. And it was just, I was like, wait a minute now, somebody playing a joke. As a matter of fact, I had gotten to the point where I had gotten frustrated and told the medical staff, y'all got something wrong. And I ain't been to nobody medical school, but I just knew my body was telling me that y'all didn't fix nothing because this is worse. I came to you because I was in pain. When the surgery was over, I was hoping that while I came, the pain was going to be gone, Red, but it wasn't. It got worse. But sooner or later, I was able to start bearing the pain because my body was getting better and that pain was eventually decreasing because I was beginning to heal. And at your most painful moments, can I suggest to you tonight, when it's at your painful moment and you don't feel like you can bear it, that's when you ought to start shouting, because God is producing in you and fulfilling in you purpose that cannot be denied. It cannot be denied. And that's a word for somebody tonight. Because out of all of the stuff you've been going through, you've been experiencing, sometimes what happens, doubt creeps in. Discouragement creeps in. And say, wait a minute, I gotta be doing something wrong. Because sometimes the resistance and this thing is so difficult, it is possible that you could be doing something right. And God is just birthing purpose in your life. And so I came to encourage you, even through moments of pain, don't let the pain stop you from purpose when it should produce it. Father, if thou be willing, right? Watch what Jesus says, because it's important to look at that. He says, Lord, if you're willing, right? Because he makes this statement, Lord, if you're willing, not Lord, if this is possible to be your will. Because he knows where he's speaking from. He's speaking from the place of pain. And sometimes our prayers are coming from the place of pain. And we have to be mindful and careful of our vocabulary when we're in pain. Because when you're in pain, your conversation changes. Because I knew that I should have been praying at some point, right? But because I was in pain, I was trying to figure out who I needed to blame for this pain, right? And so you have to be careful while you're in pain that you keep a good vocabulary and keep yourself at a place and say, wait a minute. Am I speaking out of my place of pain, or am I speaking out of my sense of purpose? You gotta ask yourself the question. Is it pain vocabulary, or is it purpose vocabulary? You have to ask yourself those questions, right? Because you want to make sure that your purpose is aligned, that what you're saying is aligned with your purpose. Because if not, you'll tell yourself one thing, and in order to prove yourself anyway. And we have to have wisdom. Because there's some stuff I don't want to be right, and even though I say it, I don't want that to happen. You ever said something, you like, yeah, I said that, but I really don't want not that to happen. But if you speak from a place of pain and not purpose, it'll have you tripping, and then you'll start carrying out the action that you confessed. What's our challenge? What then becomes our challenge? Right? What is our challenge as we're developing a sense of purpose? How do I develop that sense of purpose? Where do I start? Where's the starting place of developing purpose? That's a perfect question. Because, Pastor, I just don't know. I don't know. I know, I kind of think I want to, I don't know. Watch this. And this is a all-inclusive start. All-inclusive. Everybody can do this. Everybody can do this. If you want to develop a true sense of purpose, right? Don't wait on nothing grand or grandiose. Here's where it starts. In your willingness to be obedient to what God has said. That was boring, Pastor. That was boring. Well, it was Jesus Christ who's praying to his Father. I don't want to do it this way, but he says, nevertheless, in his statement, in his vocabulary, he's saying, I want to be obedient to your will. And therefore, as a result of me being obedient to the will, guess what? I have a sense of purpose. And your sense of purpose has to start with your willingness to just obey God. What? Do you know that that's our lifetime journey? Striving to walk in obedience to the things of God. Did you know that's our challenge? You ain't got to look at nobody else. You ain't got to blame nobody else. If you're looking for something to do, why don't you try to just work on, I want to obey God? No, it's a practical principle that you can take. It'll help you in your relationships. It'll help you in your friendships. It'll help you in your churchship. It'll help you put things in your order. It'll keep the water out the ship. All of that stuff. Just one simple act. Well, what is that? Obedience. Because that's ultimately what Jesus Christ is doing. He's saying, Lord, nevertheless, I want to obey you. Not about me, but whatever you want. It's your practical takeaway tonight. It is your practical takeaway tonight. What is it that God has asked of you and you have not done? It's your practical takeaway. What is it, Mount Calvary, we're supposed to be doing to further impact our community that we have not done? What are you doing in your personal life that God has placed it on your heart? It keeps coming up in your mind. And you keep saying, well, I'm going to do it later. As if you control later. It's your practical takeaway. It's my challenge that when you leave here tonight, that you'll walk in a baby step in the act of obedience toward God. Take a baby step. Because I told you, this is a place where you got to develop to. And the more you obey, the easier it becomes to obey. And your obedience to God requires you to keep your emotions, your feelings in check. You get to feel how you feel. I am a believer of that. Don't let nobody tell you not to feel a certain way. I get mad when people tell me now, you shouldn't feel like that. What? Now, what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to act out on how I feel. Because then that'll cause me to throw stuff, hit people. You understand? Not me, I'm talking about other people. Right? And so you have to be careful. But when you walk in obedience, you understand the order that's needed for your own personal life. What will you do as a challenge to you? God has shared some things with you. Told you to do something. You put it on the shelf. You got scared. You thought it was too big. You thought nobody would gravitate to it. There is so much purpose sitting in this room. And I think we live our lives frustrated because we're not walking in our purpose. And I'm always amazed that every time I'm shopping, every time I'm looking at stuff now, I'm just always amazed and motivated that I gotta be next. That God has to have me next. Right? Every time. Because somebody, it started with them being motivated just by purpose. I think every time I buy a happy birthday card from Hallmark, There's somebody sitting somewhere happy as ever with life because they had an idea. I'm going to create a card that says happy birthday. People are going to buy it. And I'm going to live my life because I told somebody happy birthday and I came up with some unique words. There's purpose sitting in this room. There's purpose sitting in this room. Don't let nobody rob you of your ideas. Stop telling everybody anyway. Go after it. Walk in the will of God. Walk in obedience to God and go after it. Frustrated with jobs, but you've got more wisdom and knowledge and you're just afraid to step out. And people are out here living their best lives because they decided, I've got purpose, I've got this simple idea, I'm going to put this together, and here I am. Who would have ever thought? I ain't got to leave my house if I want to get something. I'll create all kind of merchants and say, hey, I'll create a website where merchants can come on and sell their product, and I never have to build a store. And I'll call it Amazon. And because I understand that some of y'all like to get it quick, I'll give you Prime. It started with an idea that eventually led into purpose, and people didn't get distracted, and here they are. My challenge is, what you waiting on to give us the next great thing? Birth it. Tell the right people. Obey God. And watch him do the rest. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us a little bit over 30 minutes. I appreciate you. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you. Sister Johnson is coming with our announcements as we're gearing up for our district meeting on next week. I hope that we are in place and doing what we're supposed to be doing. I love y'all so much. Keep us lifted in your prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Johnson, for that timely word on tonight. We certainly here at Mount Calvary appreciate you. The annual session for the Fellowship Baptist District Association will be held July 10th through the 14th of 2022. The session will kick off with a concert on Sunday, which is this Sunday, July the 10th at Salem Missionary Baptist Church at 6 o'clock p.m. Then classes Monday through Thursday from 5:30 to 6:45 at Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, and nightly services at 7 o'clock p.m. back at Salem. Monday will be the ushers and nurses along with Women's Night. The color for that night is all white. On Tuesday at 12:30, the Women's Ministry will host a luncheon at Macedonia MB Church. Tickets are $15 each, and you can see Sister Zelda Roden Williams. Tuesday is also Congress Night at 7 o'clock p.m. Wednesday is Layman and Youth Night. Thursday is the Moderators Night. Youth rehearsal is Monday through Thursday at 2 o'clock p.m. here at Mount Calvary. And youth classes will be at 5:30 p.m. here at Mount Calvary. If you would like to sign your youth up, please see Sister Jeanette Ellaby to sign youth up for those classes. There is also a Zoom link to register for the classes, or you can receive registration information from me. We know that this is a lot of information, so if you have any questions or you need clarification or to register for classes, you can see me immediately following this worship service on tonight. To order Pastor Johnson's first book project, Looking Within, please go to lakivicjohnson.com, amazon.com, kobo.com, Barnes & Noble, or you can see me immediately following worship. These are your weekly announcements. Please govern yourselves accordingly. And thank you to all of our visitors that thought it not robbery to join us on tonight. Have an amazing Wednesday. God bless you all.